So John, the closest, most likely disciple to Jesus, is now on in his years. He's been exiled to this island called Patmos. And while he's there basically breaking rocks and living out the rest of his days, God gives him this vision of all the things that are going to transpire that's to come. Well, part of what was to come was this heaven. So John, we call it Revelation because he was the revelator. He was the one that got this revelation from God because God knew in 2019, some of us were going to walk through some things. Some of us were going to face some things, and we needed to know what is there to come. Is life all that there is? Our media and our world has sort of built up this mirage that all of life is to be meant to be lived here, so soak it all up. And John says, no. This is a pale comparison of what's to come. How many of you have been touched by mourning before? Raise your hand. How many of you have been touched by pain before? How many of you have been touched by death before? It's really interesting. He writes these things, and he tells us not only what heaven is, that we'll talk about next week, he tells us what isn't. And then he makes one of the most hopeful verses to me in all of Scripture. I want you to look with me at the next verse. He said, he who is seated on the throne said this, behold, I am making, and I love this, all things what? Well, while we're in heaven, when our eyes close here and we open our eyes there in this new dwelling place, here are the things you will not find anymore. Principle number one, there will be no more sickness. Why? And I want you to write a word out beside number one. Sickness is caused by sin. Did you write that? Back in the garden when man fell, we began to decay. Here, that's what Scripture teaches. Sin just causes all kinds of problems. And part of the problem is sin causes a decay of our bodies. As we get older, we don't get better, right? As surely as there are physical bodies, there are spiritual bodies. Our physical bodies will be changed into spiritual bodies. I want everybody to hold your hands up. Ready? Everybody hold their hands up. I want you to snap. All right, snap. Pay attention now. Not giving you instructions yet. On the count of three, I want you to snap. Ready? 1, 2, 3. That's how fast. What you think is this forever state of what's going to happen that fast. You'll be transformed. Principle number 2. Ready? There's no more sadness in heaven. Now, I'm not talking about the sadness that my team lost or the sadness that, the stock market went down. That's not what I'm talking about. I want you to write the word out beside it. Here's the word that sadness appeals to. Ready? It's the word gloom. You ever had that kind of sadness before? You ever had that kind of sadness when the sun comes up, it's really hard to see it because gloom has entered? And that gloom leads to these words: anxiety, depression, real things. Because it's like the sadness that won't let you go. Not only is there no more sickness, there's no more sadness, there's no more suffering. There's no more suffering. Hunger. Gosh, majority of our world's in hunger. Danger. No more danger. Look at what John said. They'll never again be hungry or thirsty. They will never be scorched by the heat of the sun. There will be no more angst and pain in heaven. Look at what Scripture says. There will be no more pain. Number 4, there will be no more sin. Remember, sin's the cause of all of the evil one, the instigator, the villain, the devil. He was the instigator of sin. What he never told Adam and Eve is this: you can do this, but here's what it's going to cost you. Well, he didn't tell us now. There'll be no more sin in heaven. Finally, number 5, there'll be no more death. Death is the curse of human existence. The number one fear every creature who's ever walked this earth was death. John said there'll be no more death. I want you to write the word out beside number 5, separation. That's really what death is. Death is separation. So when someone dies here, they are separated from their family. You know what else I've learned in all the years I've been in ministry? There's never a good time to say goodbye. There's just not. There is no time where we go, oh, well, when we're there, death will be easier. No. Death stinks. See, as a believer, things enter into our lives that we hurt from. Pain, sickness, sorrow, suffering, death. Hardest part about it is we don't ever feel like we get to say goodbye correctly, whether we had 6 months to tell them or they left that day and it was business as usual. You know what God told John to tell us? There will be no more separation. We will be there forever. When we take up residence there will be no more see you laters and goodbyes. It'll all be hello again, forever.